Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Kruse. We're broadcasting from the greater Boise, Idaho area. And when you come here, you really need to take a drive about 45 minutes south and visit the Morley Nelson Snake River Birds of Prey National Conservation Area. It is full of wildlife that you've got to see and some incredible sights too. With us here to tell you more about this conservation area, which is celebrating its 25th anniversary, is the manager from the Bureau of Land Management, Amanda Hoffman. Amanda, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So, Amanda, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about what they're going to find here at this conservation area?
Yeah, so the NCA was designated primarily because it has the largest and densest population of nesting raptors in North America, if not the world. We have about 15 or 16 species of raptors and some of the highest densities of species like golden eagles or prairie falcons. In fact, when surveys were done in the 1970s and 1980s, they determined that 5% of the prairie falcon's entire species was located in the Morley Nelson Snake River Birds of Prey National Conservation Area.
Well, when I took a drive down there today, I'll be honest, when you first get to the outskirts, it's not much to look at, folks. I mean, it's flat ground, and there's these little mounds, little teeny mounds. And coming out of these little teeny mounds and running all over the place are ground squirrels. And these ground squirrels, I presume, are the fast food for all these hawks that are coming here, and the falcons too.
Yeah, definitely. So when the area first started to be looked at, really they just focused on the canyon and noticed that there was a lot of nesting activity that happened there. But as they did more research, they realized that the uplands were just as important as the canyon, because that's really where the prey species were. So we have incredible populations of Paiute ground squirrel, and then another burrowing animal that people might not know about. We have the largest population of the North American badger in the world here also.
I didn't know that. Not a clue. And I love badgers. They are like really cool animals. Now, I said it wasn't much to look at, but that's only half true, because once you get to the Snake River, man, that is beautiful. And Dedication Point in particular, that is just a drop-dead view, not only of the river and the canyon, but boy, you get to see all sorts of raptors there too.
And especially this time of year when they're setting up nests and mating, Dedication Point is an amazing spot, and it's really where we encourage people to go. It puts you right on the canyon rim so you can see the canyon, and then the bird activity there is absolutely phenomenal.
It really was. I got to see prairie falcons, I got to see a red-tailed hawk, I got to see all sorts of other birds besides raptors too, and of course lots and lots of ground squirrels that these birds were after. So that was really neat. But somewhere else that I think is a must visit when you're there is Celebratng Park. And I know that's not a BLM park, that is administered by Canyon County, but boy, that's a really cool place too.
Yeah, it's great. So we work really closely with Celebratng Park on a lot of their interpretation. They're right next to us. They're our next door neighbors. And actually some of the resources that they interpret are on BLM managed lands. So they have an amazing petroglyph trail just north of the park that they have tours of. And that really gets at another reason that the NCA was designated, which is our important cultural resources.
And those petroglyphs, really cool, folks. We're talking 10 to 12,000-year-old petroglyphs. They do have great tours, wonderful staff down there. And by the way, it's right on the Snake River. There's a boat launch right there. There's people that are fishing there too. And if you go to the visitor center, they've got a spotting scope that's trained right on a golden eagle nest right across the river. And word has it, those eagles are getting ready to hatch some eggs pretty quick.
That's a really great nest. In fact, it's often referred to as the condo. The eagles return there year after year and have, over the years, added to their nest. And so it's one of the larger nests you'll actually ever see. And really, you're so in such a great place there at the bottom of the canyon that the views of that nest and their activity is great.
And if you want to go camp, they even have camping there at Celebratng Park, too. You're listening to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Kruse. We're talking to Amanda Hoffman. She is the manager for the Morley Nelson Snake River Birds of Prey National Conservation Area, administered by the Bureau of Land Management. It's the 25th anniversary. And before we get into some of the events, who's Morley Nelson, and why did they name this place after him?
Yeah, so Morley Nelson was a self-taught falconer who grew up on a farm in North Dakota. And he moved to Boise in the late 1940s. And being a falconer, one of the first things he did was start to explore the area looking for raptors. And when he stumbled on that area south of Kuna, he realized this wasn't like anywhere else he had ever seen. And so he started working with the Bureau of Land Management in the 1960s to seek some sort of national protection for the area, and was really an advocate for designation for the 30 years it took to finally get that national protection.
You mentioned partnerships here, and I understand that the local communities had a lot to do with this place, not just Morley Nelson, but the local communities too had a lot to do with this place coming into being.
Yeah, the NCA was really designated because the local community recognized how important this area was and worked together to protect it. And that effort really occurred through the 1970s and 1980s, where groups like the Idaho Army National Guard, Golden Eagle Audubon, a lot of local environmental groups and local politicians really worked together to remove the barriers and allow the area to be designated.
How big is this National Conservation Area?
We're just under 500,000 acres.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea. But one thing that was interesting to me is there's, kind of a patchwork. It's not just a huge swath of public land. There's a patchwork of private land that's interspersed. And like we said, Celebratng Park, which is a county park. And this brings up my next question. A national conservation area is obviously different than a national monument or a national park. Is this one of the differences?
Not necessarily. So the boundary of the NCA is actually really interesting in that it's probably one of the only boundaries that was driven by science. When they did the studies specifically on prairie falcons, they identified where their hunting territories were and drew the boundaries in order to encompass that. We are different than national monuments and national parks. So national parks are managed by the National Park Service, and they have their own designation process. National monuments are designated under the Antiquities Act through executive order by the president, but national conservation areas are designated under authority that was given in the Federal Land Policy and Management Act of 1976, and that has to be a congressional designation.
Interesting. Just learned something new. Let's talk about some of the events that are coming up, and a couple of them look really cool. We'll start off with one that's happening June 2nd, the Snake River Raptor Fest. What's that all about?
Yeah, so we're really fortunate that we have an amazing friends group, the Birds of Prey NCA Partnership, and they're bringing back the Snake River Raptor Fest. There used to be a festival in Kuna, and we decided that this was a great year to try to resurrect that. So on June 2nd, between noon and 5 at Indian Creek Winery, we're going to have a festival, and it'll include food, music, a lot of education about birds. We'll have our educational raptors there, as well as some of our partners. The partnership is working really closely with agencies and groups like the Idaho Army National Guard, Idaho Power, and others in order to make this a really exciting event.
One other thing that's going on, and it's an RSVP, folks. I'm guessing this has got to be in demand. Raptor banding trips. You can actually help band owls and hawks?
Yes, so this is part of our spring hike series, which we actually do every year, and we give the public an opportunity to come help us do some science and some research. So they get to go out with our biologists and biologists from Fish and Wildlife Service and help us band screech owls and ferruginous hawks.
How do you sign up for that?
Yes. So we have information on our website, but you can also call the BLM and ask for Corey Kaufman, who's our environmental education specialist, and she can get you on those lists. I encourage people to call early. They're very popular, and they always fill up.
If you want to find out more about the 25th anniversary and all the events that are going on, because we just hit a couple of them here, here's what you need to do. Just Google Morley Nelson Snake River Birds of Prey, and you will get to a website. Just look for the 25th anniversary and dive into it. They're still setting up some dates for some of the events that are coming up, but again, June 2nd is the Snake River Raptor Fest at the Indian Creek Winery, and there are those raptor banding trips, and you'll want to sign up for those much sooner than later. Amanda, thanks for taking the time to tell us all about this very special place on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
You demand quality performance from your binoculars, whether you use them in the field, on the water, or at a stadium. But you don't want to spend a fortune. That's where the BX Mackenzie binoculars from Leupold come in. These armored, waterproof binoculars are both comfortable and dependable. Look for your Mackenzie binoculars at quality sporting goods retailers near you, to include your Cabela's, Sportsman's Warehouse, or Northwest Weimar stores. VX Mackenzie, bringing your world into sharper focus, only from Leupold.